Martin Luther King was one of the most influential leaders in American history, known for his powerful speeches that inspired change and equality. His words continue to resonate today, pushing for justice, love, and peace. In this video, we will explore some of his most famous speeches, looking at the messages he shared and how they helped shape the civil rights movement. Before we start, make sure you subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon to get regular updates. Let's get started. I Have a Dream. Martin Luther King delivered his famous I Have a Dream speech on August 28, 1963, during the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. This speech, delivered on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, became one of the defining moments of the civil rights movement. It captured the hopes and aspirations of millions of African Americans who longed for freedom and equality in a nation plagued by racial segregation and discrimination. King began by acknowledging the historical significance of the moment, stating, "I am happy to join with you today in what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation." He reminded the audience that, despite the Emancipation Proclamation signed a century earlier, African Americans were still not truly free. He described how black people continued to live under the weight of injustice and inequality, saying, "100 years later, the Negro lives on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity." King's speech was not just a critique of the current state of racial inequality. It was also a call to action. He urged the nation to fulfill its promises of equality and justice, emphasizing, "Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy. Now is the time to rise from the dark and desolate valley of segregation to the sunlit path of racial justice." His words carried a sense of urgency, underscoring that change could no longer be postponed. The most memorable part of the speech came when King began to speak extemporaneously, repeating the phrase, "I have a dream." He shared his vision of a future where racial harmony would prevail and individuals would be judged not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. He said, "I have a dream that one day little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers." King also drew on powerful imagery and biblical references to emphasize his message of hope and unity. He envisioned a day when every valley shall be exalted, every hill and mountain shall be made low, the rough places will be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight. This vision of a transformed world resonated deeply with his audience and continues to inspire people worldwide. King concluded with a call for unity and freedom, quoting the words of an old spiritual, free at last, thank God Almighty, we are free at last." The speech cemented King's place as a symbol of hope and a leader of moral courage, inspiring generations to work toward a more just and equitable world. I've been to the mountaintop. On April 3, 1968, Martin Luther King Jr. delivered what would become his final speech. I've been to the mountaintop at the Mason Temple in Memphis, Tennessee. The speech was delivered during a rally in support of the Memphis sanitation workers' strike, which sought better working conditions and fair wages for black workers. This speech showcased King's unwavering commitment to justice, even as he faced increasing threats to his life. King opened by addressing the importance of the sanitation workers' struggle, situating it within the broader fight for economic and social justice. He said, "The issue is the refusal of Memphis to be fair and honest in its dealings with its public servants." King emphasized that the movement was about more than just local issues. It was a fight for dignity and equality for all working people. Throughout the speech, King acknowledged the challenges facing the movement, including resistance and threats of violence. He reminded the audience of the power of collective action and nonviolent resistance, saying, "Let us keep the issues where they are. The issue is injustice." He urged his listeners to remain united and determined, declaring, "We are going to let justice roll down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream." One of the most memorable and prophetic parts of the speech came when King reflected on his mortality. He spoke about a recent bomb threat that had delayed his flight to Memphis, saying, "I don't know what will happen now. We've got some difficult days ahead, but it doesn't matter with me now, because I've been to the mountaintop." King compared his life to the journey of Moses, who saw the promised land but did not live to enter it. He said, King compared his life to the journey of Moses, who saw the promised land but did not live to enter it. He said, "I just want to do God's will, and He's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over, and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land." These words carried an air of finality and deep conviction, as if King sensed that his time was nearing its end. He ended the speech with a powerful declaration of faith and courage. "Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord." The next day, King was assassinated. His final words at the Mason Temple became a lasting testament to his vision, sacrifice, and unwavering commitment to justice. Beyond Vietnam, a time to break silence. On April 4, 1967, Martin Luther King Jr. delivered his speech, Beyond Vietnam, a time to break silence, at Riverside Church in New York City. This speech marked a significant departure from his earlier focus on civil rights, as King publicly condemned the Vietnam War and its devastating impact on both the United States and the world. King began by explaining why he could no longer remain silent about the war, stating, "A time comes when silence is betrayal." He acknowledged that his stance might be controversial, but he argued that his commitment to justice demanded that he speak out. King saw the war as morally unjust and economically wasteful, noting that it disproportionately affected the poor and marginalized. He criticized the U.S. government for prioritizing military spending over addressing domestic issues like poverty and inequality. He said, "This is no time to engage in the luxury of cooling off or to take the tranquilizing drug of gradualism." King highlighted the hypocrisy of fighting for freedom abroad while denying basic rights to African Americans at home. One of the most striking parts of the speech was when King described the human cost of the war. He said, "We were taking the black young men who had been crippled by our society and sending them 8,000 miles away to guarantee liberties in Southeast Asia, which they had not found in Southwest Georgia and East Harlem." This pointed critique exposed the stark contradictions of American policy. King called for a revolution of values, urging the nation to move away from a focus on materialism and militarism toward a society grounded in love and justice. He declared, "Our only hope today lies in our ability to recapture the revolutionary spirit and go out into a sometimes hostile world declaring eternal hostility to poverty, racism, and militarism." The speech was met with widespread criticism from political leaders, media outlets, and even some of King's allies in the civil rights movement. However, King remained steadfast in his belief that peace, justice, and equality were interconnected, and that silence on issues of war and poverty was not an option. Martin Luther King Jr.'s speeches remind us of the importance of standing up for justice, equality, and peace. His words, delivered with unwavering conviction, continue to inspire people around the world to work towards a better, more unified future. As we reflect on his legacy, let's keep in mind the values he championed: love, courage, and a commitment to doing what's right. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more insightful content. Thanks for watching.